Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you joining us this evening. We'll go ahead and get started. It's right after 8 o'clock. We just finished another webinar for summer games in regards to some swimming information that we wanted to share with other people. So I appreciate your patience. Again, this is the head of delegation webinar for the Winter Games. And this is Steve Bennett speaking now. We also have Neil Coffey, our Winter Games director, on the line. Mike Sarnowski is here monitoring your questions. George Herganon will be joining us, and potentially others from our management team. I do see Jane Dunn, who hopefully most of you know through filling out housing requests and housing allotments and things of that nature for Winter Games. So again, we'll go ahead and get started. And again, we appreciate everyone taking the time today to join us.
Click on that screen over there. No, the left one. There you go. Just click, and then the page down will work. There you go.
Okay, thank you again. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Here's the agenda. We're basically just going to go over a lot of information for the Winter Games. So again, welcome. Well, we'll talk about the event guide, which actually I sent out a little earlier this evening. So hopefully those of you or everyone should have received that. If not, we'll be sending that out again. That only went out to the HODs that we had from previous years, and the coaches will get that in the next day or two, but no later than Monday or Tuesday of next week. Those will be sent out to the coaches by our sports directors. We'll look at kind of where the schedule is at this time. We've got some layouts and maps of the facilities, talk about the meetings. Again, Jane will speak on some housing components, talk about some storage, overall flow of the games, the ceremony, special events. We'll obviously hit on some of the coaching topics that's for Winter Games and all of our other games to make sure that all the athletes and competitors do not get disqualified based on outside sources from a coaching aspect. Give some information in regards to family services and spectators, talk about the weather, and again, we'll open up some questions at the end. What I will say is this webinar is being recorded, and this will also go out, not only the recording, but also the slides to this deck. So those of you who are new to this, don't worry about scrambling and writing all the notes down, as the slide decks will be emailed out to everyone. The other thing we do want to mention is we also have a new kind of component to our website, and it's a coach's resource page, which is no longer the old version where you had to have a login and a password. This is open to the public. So again, you can check that as we move forward. It's in its infancy stages at this point, but there'll be some nice content we'll start adding to that throughout the year. So again, the purpose of tonight is just to talk with you guys as leaders from your delegations, give you some relevant information, highlight some key changes and issues. We hit on them last year with the changes. However, as you all well know, our games were not able to be conducted due to weather concerns last year. So most of those issues we just want to readdress this year moving forward. And again, give you guys time to ask if there's any questions, etc. One thing that we have had in the past is Delaware and Virginia has either expressed interest or actually have joined us for our state Winter Games. This year, neither one of those state programs were able to join us this year, but we do hopefully, or we will at least make the invitation to them again as we move forward. One of the things we always hit, I thought it was important just to hit right off the bat, is, again, hopefully everyone knows this, but in no form, fashion whatsoever can any volunteer participate in Special Olympics without all their valid medical forms from an athlete's perspective, and from volunteer participation with all of their certifications, background checks, etc. That begins at training. The first day of training, if there's athletes that show up without a medical, that is not allowed for them to participate. So again, we just want you guys to all be protected, as well as Special Olympics Maryland. So here are just kind of some of the highlights and updates. The key change Again, as I mentioned, was our change from 17 to 18, which we weren't able to implement because of the weather. But the time trials have previously been on separate weekends. This year, again, like we were planning to do last year, the time trials will be combined into the finals on the same weekend. So it's basically a 3-day event, Sunday through Tuesday, Sunday being the time trials and the opening ceremonies that evening at Whitetail. Then we return for Monday and Tuesday for the finals. We'll talk about the schedule. But again, the highlight there is the opening ceremony will take place that evening after dinner at Whitetail, the same location, which is on the back patio looking up on the slopes. But again, that's an important factor as we will have dinner there at Whitetail and then move into the opening ceremony that evening and then return to the hotels to get ready for the finals on Monday and Tuesday. We have the 2 on-snow training sessions. Unfortunately, on January 12th, the snowshoeing was unable to be conducted at Whitetail, again, due to some weather challenges and snow constraints. But I know that Zach and the snowshoeing committee were able to make some available, other opportunities on that day, looking for some other options as well. And then we're looking forward to February 9th, another on-snow training date at Whitetail for both snowshoeing and alpine skiing. The registration fees, again, just so everyone's in the loop, full registration, which is the 2 nights of lodging, is $195 per delegate. The day of registration, which is where athletes or delegation members do not stay in a hotel, is $120 per delegate. Now, that doesn't mean they're not staying in a hotel. That means that we're not providing them delegation housing through Jane Dunn and through Special Olympics Maryland. They're doing that on their own. It does include the meals and anyone above the 3-to-1 ratio. If there's questions on that, we can address those. But anyone above that ratio, that's 3 athletes to 1 chaperone or coach, will be $260 a person. So hopefully, just want to make everyone aware of that. George Herganon, if you're on the line, we do have some updated alpine staging processes we'd like to share with you. This is something that the coaches have already been informed about, and that has been shared with them.
I know George isn't on the webinar itself, but George, are you on the audio? It does not look like it.
Okay. So again, the coaches are aware of this. We have some challenges with the staging processes and getting athletes to their.
He's logging in now. So.
Okay, he's logging in now. But as I'll get started, just to give you a little bit of a background, there's always been a little bit of a challenges with coaches and volunteers and that getting athletes to the top of the mountain, getting them back down from the staging tent, having the escorts comfortable with the athletes, etc. So our Alpine committee has come up with some solutions we think will help resolve some of the challenges we've had in the past, and we will go from there. So George, if you're on, I think he just joined us. George, if you can speak, let's hear if we can hear you.
Yeah, Steve, can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear, George. Go ahead.
All right. My apologies for being late, folks. I ran into a little bit of difficulty on the way home, but just wanted to take the opportunity to speak to everybody on what we've learned about this new staging method and how we think it'll work best, and see if anybody has any questions about it. So just as a quick background, we've always had great difficulty recruiting enough escorts because we have a Monday, Tuesday event, and it's hard to get people during the week. So using an idea that's been tried and used at World Games, we're going to set up a staging operation at the top of each race course. So what we will need the coaches and the partners to do, as you see in the second bullet, is rather than bringing people, as we have in the past, to a staging tent, we're going to bring them to the top of their race course where a staging area will be marked. We'll have banners and signs marking the staging area. The times will be on the schedule that's distributed, and that's the time you need to be at staging. From there, once a heat is complete, they'll be sent over to the course to start. We ask that the coaches then go to the bottom of the course, get the heat when it's done, and bring them back up. Remember, every alpine competition is 2 runs. And then at the end of the second run, get them at the end of the course and take them then to the awards staging area. A couple things. We recognize that probably there may be heats where 3 or 4 counties have athletes in that heat. We don't need everybody to stay with that heat. Generally, 2 escorts is enough. And with the advanced athletes, oftentimes we just put 1 escort with them because the advanced athletes are such good skiers. We will have, just in case we're not, we think this is going to work well. We don't anticipate any problems, but just in case we have requested some extra volunteers to be in the staging area so that if there's not enough coaches to escort, then we can assign one of those volunteers to that heat. Now, we'll probably only have 2 or 3 people, so we won't be able to do that with every heat. But just in case, we'll have some people standing by to be able to help. And this is nothing new. This is just a reminder on the rules about coaching. Coaching, as we said, is while you're escorting them or while you're on the lift, you can talk to them about tactics and about strategy. But when they are entering the race course, when they're in the race course, then no coaching. And coaching is specific instructions. It does not include things like hooray and yay and go and cheering, general cheering. But within the race course, as it says, only general cheering, no specific instructions, or the athlete may be disqualified. That was, Steve, do we want to see if there's any questions about the, or are there any questions yet about the new staging procedures?
Yeah, George, I don't see any at this time.
No, I don't see any hands raised or anything typed in. So
okay, all right, great.
We get closer and such, more will closer to the games, more will come to light.
Okay. Steve, did you want me to continue with this, or are you going to cover?
No, I'm good, George. Thank you very much for addressing those updates with the escorting and the staging processes. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, George. Okay, this is, again, very, very preliminary schedules, but you'll see in the event guide, it's a little bit more defined, and then later on in this slide deck, it's a little bit more defined. But as the schedules, as you all well know, this far out, they're subject to change, but this gives you a basic idea of what we're looking for on Monday and Tuesday with the Alpine events. Again, Monday and Tuesday will be the finals, provided that everything works well for us on Sunday and we're able to get all the time trials in. The one exception to that is the glide and super glide time trials will be on Monday. There'll be no events for the athletes competing in the glide and super glide on Sunday. But again, we'll see later in the slide, and I'll address it for the glide and super glide events.
Okay, Steve, Al Jank has his hand up. I'm going to take a call. Al, you should be able to speak and have us hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Just retired today from work.
Wow, you are great.
Yeah. But I got a couple of questions here regarding all this stuff. Okay, so we're talking about coaches and escorting and talking about, meeting them at the end of the first run and taking that group back up to the second run. So will those coaches, like if there's a heat with 4 athletes and it's from 3 different counties and you only need 2 escorts, will 2 of those coaches or at least one of those coaches then get a heat sheet so that they know who all they have that may not be in their county, or are we all just supposed to be responsible for each of our own athletes?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a good question. I think it's going to be a collective effort. Depending on the amount of athletes, we'll have information available, and depending on the amount of athletes in a given heat or a given division or whatever. For instance, if there's 2 or 3 athletes from all 3 different counties, we don't need 3 coaches going up the lift with those athletes. But if there's a larger group, we may need 1 or 2. So we just look for the collective cooperation with the coaches to work on those. And the Alpine crew will be there to assist as well.
Yeah, and also, Al, I'd be happy to talk to you offline. I did, if any of your other questions on this are would be relevant to a head of delegation, since that's
okay.
really focused tonight. Is there anything along those lines that might tap in with that, as opposed to very specific to Alpine?
The only other question I had was about the 3 athletes to 1 coach ratio. Is that different than, say, like 2 or 3 years ago, or is that the same ratio that we've had for a number of years, even before?
Yeah, it's the same ratio. If there is a unique situation that because of this that your delegation has a concern related to that, they can contact me directly, and I can't promise we can do anything, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay, Mike. Thanks. That's all I have.
All right. The next slide, I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about. Mike?
Well, luckily, what's good is we're already past many of these. We have everybody's forms are in. We've got all that good. I do want to give a major kudos out to one of our newer staff members, Dottie Rush, who many of you may have interacted with. Dottie is just amazingly fast and has gotten and maintained us being about as current in terms of processing the forms for athletes and volunteers as I think we've ever been. And so we've gotten everything processed through. So as a reminder, the next deadline that we have is the 7th of February, which is next Thursday. By that time, you need to have the competitive events for your athletes and partners entered into GMS. The next morning, you will be locked out of making changes in GMS. There will be an opportunity at the time trials, or that Sunday, and I think we'll touch on again on this a bit later, but there will be an opportunity if, just as there always has been, if during the time trial you make a determination that someone you had entered in an intermediate is really more appropriate for a novice event, or if you had entered them into a 400 meter in snowshoe and they're not going to be able to do that and they should be in a 100 instead, you will absolutely have that opportunity. It's going to be limited to that Sunday because we have to turn around and with specific times, but you will have that opportunity. The one other thing to note is that 7th is your last day to get in if you have a chaperone or a head of delegation that is not in. That all needs to be in at that point. Jane made a comment, Jane Dunn, who I think we'll speak with in a bit, made a comment the other day that it seems like several heads of delegation forgot to have themselves registered. So please do get them in. The caveat with those is all of their forms, their volunteer application and their protected behaviors must be up to date. There's no extra week to get that in after you submit them. That all has to be up to date in order for us to accept any those. It is too late to add an athlete, too late to add a coach, too late to add another volunteer or a unified partner. But chaperones and HODs, we will take up until the 7th, provided all their forms are in and valid through the Winter Games. So, but thank you to everybody for getting that stuff turned around and sticking with the deadlines that we had. Back to you, Steve.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. Again, just wanted to thank Whitetail and all of the coaches who did attend this training session on January 12th for Alpine. And hopefully everyone had a good experience. Those that I did speak with indicated such. Also want to give a thank you to Washington County, John Follett, as well as Montgomery County, John Bagaski, for making the availability for other coaches to come join and share ideas for snowshoeing, again, since Whitetail was unable, based on weather and snow availability, to provide us an opportunity to have snowshoeing on their at their resort. So again, and we're looking forward to the February 9th session, and hopefully everything will go well with that.
Okay, and Steve, Barb Selps has her hand up. Barb, I can't open up your line because you didn't enter a PIN. So I'm clicking, and it should be sending you your PIN, your identification number, and once you key that in, we can open up for your question. But Steve, why don't you keep rolling until then?
All righty. As in the years past, Whitetail has been gracious enough to open up a group rate for Special Olympics. Here's the prices that you can expect. The important thing there is you need to identify yourself if you go up sometime other than when we have our winter games and the training coming up on February 9th as a member of the Special Olympics Maryland group. And again, they will honor these prices that you see here. We have not had 100% confirmation from Round Top and Liberty that they will also honor these prices, but in years past they have, and they're all under the same ownership group. So again, we hope that they would, but please identify yourself as such. And again, I know with Whitetail and the other sister properties, they've gone out of their way to make this available to Special Olympics in years past.
Okay, and Steve, it looks like Barb, I think we can take your question now. It looks like you got your PIN in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question is about the 3-to-1 ratio. Now, or do you want to wait till the end question?
Why don't we wait till the end? But I can tell you any adjustment beyond the 3-to-1 is going to be your area director, head of delegation, contact me directly, Mike, and we'll be handling them as individual case-by-case basis.
Okay. Say again. Who should they contact?
They contact Mike Zarnowski. We'll be sure that that's clear as day. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Barb. Again, the basic schedule, like I said, on time trials on Sunday, February 24th. It's important that everyone knows, and I'll just reiterate that any athlete and partner that is attending the Winter Games, you have to go and participate in time trials in order to advance to the final competitions. If you're not in time trials, no exceptions, you will not be able to participate on Monday or Tuesday, except in the one case with one of the glide or super glide events. Otherwise, again, just to stress that everyone has to participate in time trials to advance into the finals on Monday and Tuesday. Again, we're still looking at the schedules. We've tweaked it as much as we can based on the information we have at this time. If there's any schedules or any other content that needs to be updated from the event guide, we will obviously communicate with all heads of delegations and specifically any coaches if it's a sport-specific update or concern. The Alpine time trials, again, as Mike had mentioned, make sure everyone's in their competitive events at this time. And also, as Mike indicated, if you're in an event or a level that you find at time trials that is either too aggressive or they may be able to move up, that is available to make those changes, permitted that they submit them by the times indicated here. What I'll also look at is when we go to the next slide and when we communicate to all the county and area programs when their times are to come for time trials, because it'll be based on delegation, not on event. You will notice that if they're going to switch, say from a intermediate to a novice course, The novice course closes around noon on the 24th. So even if your county is not coming until after 12 o'clock, if you have a question about an athlete that may need to go from intermediate to novice, you've got to be there a little earlier, and they will work you into the schedule. So as I kind of alluded to, this is kind of times to be determined. As you can see, they're working on that right now, and that will be based upon what initial registration information the Alpine crew gets, and then they'll work that into their schedule and then communicate that out to each of you of when their expectation is to have you and your athletes partners go through time trials on Sunday. But as you see noted at the very end, that's what I was talking about novice. So again, just be prepared for that if you have any athletes in that situation. So here's the basic tentative schedule we're looking at for the 24th. Again, this is also reflected in the event guide that we sent out earlier this evening. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but as you can see, that's the time trials there. The big thing is we also have a HOD meeting Sunday evening. That will probably be around 10 o'clock, give or take, back at the Ramada Plaza, similar to what we've had in years past. Again, moving into Monday, you see here you've got the breakfast at the hotels, move to delegation registration. I'm going to go back a second here. Delegation registration, just so we're all aware, on Sunday for time trials, that will be in the upper main lodge on the second floor, similar or the same location as it has been for the training on or the on snow training dates. So moving into Monday, excuse me, when you first come on site on Monday, Control Center will still be up there. Or no, I'm sorry. We're moving Control Center on Sunday into the Control Center, main Control Center over at the KMC Learning Room, which is over by the rentals where the skis and all that have been. Same exact location we've been in years past. Those of you who have been there.
And that'll be around 3:30 that will make that move.
Yeah, that move will occur on Sunday around 3 o'clock. So give or take around that time frame, we'll reopen over there later in the afternoon. So you see here the course inspection for Alpine, the starts for novice and moving into intermediate for the different events there. We will have the lunch, floating lunch between 11:30 and 1:45, depending on the events. And we obviously leave that up to the coaches' discretion on when the best time to eat their lunches will be. Same thing here, moving along with Monday. You have the snowshoeing competition. This is where we talked about on Monday the Alpine Super Glide Finals, and that will be on Monday. Got the Super G snowshoeing coaches meeting, and then the afternoon. That'll be a wrap up from the morning, and then leading into what's expected on Tuesday. The dinner will be back at the Ramada Plaza on Monday evening. That's when we will have the dinner, then move into the athlete social and the dance. What we are also adding this year, Jason Schrimmel, who's in charge of athlete leadership, is doing a workshop that will be in the lower level of the Ramada Plaza in the Penmar room. And that's going to be kind of a classroom setting where athletes can work amongst themselves and work with each other to develop some communication skills and develop what we call an elevator speech, where they say, who am I, where am I from, what Special Olympics means to me, so that they're comfortable about talking about their Special Olympics experience when they go out into the community. We will also have the family reception that evening during the dance and the athlete social, and that will be at a property basically in the same parking lot that's in Homewood Suites, basically within walking distance. But as we always stress, the family reception is strictly for family members of the competitors, and the athlete social is strictly for the athletes and coaches, not necessarily the family members. We move into Tuesday, and then this is where I was saying the glide for Alpine, that those finals will be on Tuesday. So again, we won't go into all this detail, but you see the basic schedule here. Again, it's also reflected in the event guide. So what you may have noticed is that there wasn't a lot of detail in regards to snowshoeing, but not so fast. Here it is. So we just separated it out so you have a good idea of what the snowshoeing events will occur, and the Alpine is embedded in the overall schedules there. So again, just to see these events so that you got a basic idea. And again, you'll see these in the slide in the event guide. Here's the basic overview.
Okay. Oh, actually, Steve, was waiting till you were done the schedule. Al had a question specifically about one of the schedule blocks. Al, your line's open again?
Yeah, if we go back to Monday's slide, and I just want to make sure I get this right, because we're not doing because I'm going to have one, possibly two athletes in glide, super glide. So Monday, looking at the schedule, we see that the super glide finals are going to be at 2:00, but I don't see anything about when time trials are going to be for that, or are we anticipating a small enough group of people that the time trials and the competition will actually occur one right after the other?
Yeah, so if you see here on Monday at 11 a.m. is the glide and super glide time trials.
Ah, okay. Yep.
And then still following on Monday, but in the afternoon session.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
That's glide finals at around 2 after lunch break.
Okay. Yeah.
And then on Tuesday will be the glide finals.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So back to the overall layout of the facility. Again, what you'll see is at the top, the opening ceremony on the back patio, looking up towards the mountain and the slopes. And that's also where the Alpine Awards area will be. The one thing that we are changing, as we talked about with the staging process for Alpine, is we will have a tent where it has typically been in the past, but that's not going to be necessarily a staging tent. That's just going to be a shelter. That's primarily going to be used leading up to the opening ceremony in the evening, where the athletes or partners that are carrying in the delegation banners will congregate to then be ready for the procession of the parade Sunday evening during the opening ceremony. You also see one of the arrows pointing up to the, if you see right here, this is where the family hospitality area will be. In years past, we have had a family hospitality at snowshoeing and at Alpine. We're combining those to one family hospitality area this year, and that will be up in the main lodge looking up to the slopes, so any family members can come, get information here, and then head down to snowshoeing, or as they're heading back from snowshoeing, come up and get some information and do some information sharing there. That's also where, as you can see, the control center on Sunday until about 2:30, as we mentioned, is right in this upper level as well, and should actually be right over here. And then that will move Sunday afternoon to this area. So that's where the control center will be Sunday late afternoon, and then all day Monday and Tuesday. The dining area, if you're not familiar with it, if you walk up the main entrance into the breezeway and then take a right, this area over here is where the cafeteria style is, and that's where we will have dinner on Sunday, lunch and dinner, and then the other meals while we're on Whitetail, other than the dinner on Monday night, which will be at the Ramada Plaza. This is handicap parking, and staff parking. There's not that many handicap spots. So what we'll do is there's also a shuttle bus service area right here. The shuttles run consistently and constantly throughout the day from all parking lot locations. Very great service. They'll do drop off right out front, and then we'll have the greeters from Whitetail directing people as they're coming into the facility and the resort. Snowshoeing, if you've never been there before, if you come up the main drag, you'll follow the signs that's for Special Olympics heading that way, but also to the tubing park area. What we really stress is obey the parking signs, especially for time trials, for snowshoeing on Sunday. We're going to be in the Mountain Ops building where we've been in years past. Then moving to the tubing park for the finals on Monday and Tuesday. We have had some issues with people parking where it said no parking. So you're taking your chances, but you may be towed. But more so, we want to respect the whitetail premises because that's where they have their staff parking. So just please pass that along to family members to abide by and respect the parking signs on site. I'm going to go back one other one. For those alpine skiing, it's the same location that we will have overnight ski storage. We'll have bins for each delegation that will be labeled, but that's just for skis, no helmets, boots, that kind of thing. It's just for the ski storage overnight. And we highly suggest for any coaches, again, this has been communicated to them as well, that they have some form of indicating whose skis are whose. So it's easy for them to get up in the morning and be ready to go out to competition with not a lot of confusion. This is just a tentative alpine courses. As you know, last couple of years we've had to scramble, but whitetail has been absolutely marvelous, enabling us to participate when we can. And these just give you an idea of what slopes and courses we are intending to use for alpine. Similarly, here's kind of the layout for the snowshoeing competition. This is the Mountain Ops building. The tubing park will be open on Sunday, so that's why we will have our time trials in this area. This is the parking spots that I was talking about that are reserved for their staff and their operational vehicles. So we want to drive everyone down here to the general parking areas, spectator parking, and other visitors. So please help us with that. So again, you just come down that road from the main lodge, follow to the tubing park. This is where everything will occur. They do have a few updates since last year. They've built a really nice kind of shelter here. It's a really nice wooden structure, like a big picnic area. That's where we will have our staging for the snowshoeing competition. Right behind that is where our timing system will be. It's a shed where they keep and store all of their tubes for the tubing park. And then this area up here in their building, this one right here is where the awards will take place for snowshoeing. There's also a cafeteria where families can purchase meals as well there. This is just more of a close-up area. When we get to finals for snowshoeing, they'll be working on flattening out this course from all the tubes and the tubing park, and they'll make an oval and set up the courses there, switching over to Monday. So that's where the competition and the finals will be held for snowshoeing. This does say family services. That's more of concessions and not the family hospitality that we were talking about, has been condensed into the one location at the main lodge area. So the head of delegation meeting that we're talking about on Sunday back at the Ramada Plaza is basically just to go over the day, see if there are any questions, confusion, anything that we may be able to help out, anything that came up during the day to prepare you for the next couple of days, Monday and Tuesday with finals. There is an executive room at the Ramada Plaza. You check in, you walk straight down the hallway. That's where we have had it in the past. We're securing that as we speak. Typically that meeting, as long as nothing crazy happens on Sunday, is very brief. It's about 15 to 30 minutes at the absolute most. But again, just stress that is for HODs only. It's a small board meeting that can seat about 13 to 14 people. So it's not for coaches or athletes to come in and listen and ask questions. That's for HODs only. Registration, we talked about where that will occur in the main lodge on Sunday, and then moving over to the Learning Center where the ski rental is later on Sunday, late afternoon, and then all day Monday and Tuesday. Registration will open at 8 for delegations to check in. On the first day, you will receive your bibs, lunch passes, lift tickets, all that kind of information. And that's also where you can report your scratches so that we can go ahead and inform our timing people so that they're not scrambling looking for athletes. So if you know of any scratches ahead of time, by February 19th, that's your last day to get those into us before the fees will be implemented for the county program. So strongly suggest that you reach out to your coaches and make sure that if there's any scratches they're thinking about, let you know by February 19th. If you have any before that time or by that time, as indicated here, you can let Mike know, and his email address is listed there. Talked about the registration fees. This just kind of talks about what it covers. It doesn't cover the 100% of all the costs that's associated with the game. So just be aware of that. We talked about the scratch fees and then the ratio again. So with the ratio, the unified partners are not included in that number. That's strictly the number of Special Olympics athletes, not the partners. So when you're looking at your 3-to-1 ratio, just be aware of that. Check-in process, we talked about the control center, 8 o'clock. If there are any unused tickets for lunch, for meals, and or for lift tickets and rentals, you can return those at the control center, and we'll gladly take those off your hands. We'll also have the bibs distributed in your delegation packets for the coaches, athletes, and partners. Please be aware we had a couple questions at the first training session at Whitetail if the one bib will be the competitor's bib for all days. That is the case. So please instruct your coaches to take care of the bibs. Make sure they keep those organized and do not throw them away after time trials or after the first finals day. That is their bib to keep throughout the weekend. We talked about the parking. And again, just to stress it, if vehicles do get towed or anything of that nature, don't have people come to us. We're not going to be able to do anything about it other than help you find out where they've been towed to.
Jane's on.
Okay, Jane Dunn, we've talked a little bit about housing. If you're available, I will hand this over to you for a brief minute.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So thank you to all that have submitted their housing needs. I will be getting back to everybody next week to just follow up, see if there's any changes, and send you some preliminary information about where you're going to be housed. One question I do have, I wasn't sure whether Lower Shore is planning on housing anybody.
Lower Shore has had to drop their delegation due to an injury.
Okay, because I know last year I think they had one athlete and one coach, so I just wanted to check on that. And the second thing I have gotten snowshoe for Anne Arundel, and I know Al, I just heard you retired, so as soon as you can get me the Alpine, that'd be great. Nothing much has changed, except unlike in years past, I will be meeting everybody at Whitetail on Sunday afternoon after the control center moves to the afternoon and Monday and Tuesday areas. So each delegation should plan on sending one person to pick up the keys for their delegation. Any keys that are not picked up by, say, when the opening ceremony starts, I will head back to the hotel and those keys will be available back at your hotel. That's about all I have. Any additional information you will be provided through email.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Jane.
Jane, stay there. Al, you had a question?
I did, but I just reread the slide, and the slide has the answer to my question. Sorry.
Wonderful. Okay.
All right. One thing we always note is that, as noted here, medical rooms, once we have those, all the rooming assignments done, and Jane does her magic with putting the puzzle together with room and assignments for everyone, we'll notify everyone where the medical people will be overnight. But as always, if there's an indefinite emergency, call 911 first if it's extreme. And then we can go and notify the medical personnel that are on site overnight. I will be also another resource for HODs, etc., for overnight emergencies. I will be at the Ramada Plaza. Jane, please make note of that. And Mike Sarnowski will be the contact for any individuals that are staying at the Country Inn and Suites overnight. As noted here, please be respectful with our phone numbers. This is for true emergencies, not, hey, I need another towel or another pillow or something of that nature. But say that somewhat jokingly, but please be respectful with that information as well. Talked about the overnight ski storage. I mentioned all this. That'll start on Sunday, and
We'll go through that with the coaches.
We'll have Sunday, Monday, and again, the coaches for Alpine are aware of that. So just make sure that you talk with them to see what plan they have. You have a large delegation, how they're going to indicate whose skis and whose equipment is whose. So we have the opening and closing ceremony.
Ask if she's on the phone alone. She could have just joined on the phone.
And I don't know if Anna McCauley has joined us this evening or not.
She's not on the webinar. Anna, are you on the phone?
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, like I indicated, the opening ceremony will be on Sunday evening. For anybody who would like to, which I'm hoping is everyone, present or have representatives in the parade carrying the banner in for the parade, you can let us know as soon as possible, but at the very latest on site on Monday, no later than 5:45. Limit that to 2 individuals based on the seating capacity and the parade itself. That can be an athlete and a partner, 2 athletes, whatever you guys deem appropriate for your delegation. If there's a delegation that doesn't have individuals indicated and reported to the tent out back by 6 p.m., that delegation will not be able to participate in the parade, but obviously we'll be recognized in the opening ceremony script, and as we said, but the ceremony will start around 6:30
a.m.
Ceremony will start at 6:30 p.m. Thank you, Mike. We'll make that change before we send the information out to you guys. That'd be a shock for Anna as well. But ceremony will start at 6:30 p.m. After dinner. The other thing to note here is we really hope that you can identify who your people are who are going to carry in your banner once you arrive on Sunday. The reason for that is when we have the meal tickets for dinner, they will have a special star or some kind of sticker on their meal pass to get them into the front of the line on Sunday evening so that they can eat and get into the position quickly. So that's another reason for looking at who your 2 representatives will be in the parade ahead of time. So there's not a overall closing ceremony per se for the Winter Games. Similarly, at the Summer Games, we'll have some closing remarks at each one of the competition venues at the awards area, just indicating that those events are now officially closed. Let's see if there's anything else on this one. Again, knowing the close proximity of everyone and the PA system being outside, we had some comments made 2 years ago that there was a lot of side conversations, and for those spectators, it was hard for them to hear some of the comments being made from the stage. So if you could just please help spread the word around to be respectful during the opening ceremony and keep all sidebar conversations to a minimum so that everyone can enjoy and hear what's being said from our athlete MCs and other presentations. We would appreciate the support on that. Again, we talked about the opening ceremony nominations. We also have others where Jason Schrimmel is working with some athlete leadership individuals. But if you have anyone that you would like to nominate for the Pledge of Allegiance, the athlete oath, or the coach's oath, etc., let us know. We're in full swing in that right now. We already have a couple people that are almost in position, but no decisions have been made. If you have any individuals that you'd like to nominate, you can send those directly to me. There's my email address on this screen. The deadline for any submissions is Wednesday, February 20th. But what I'll stress is that I don't feel that there will be the openings by that time. So if you have anyone you want to nominate, I would nominate them as soon as possible. Once those individuals are selected, we will communicate out to the head delegation and make sure that they have the information they need to be included into the script and also to confirm their presence within that responsibilities. George kind of talked about the coaching.
Steve, if I can make a recommendation in the interest of time, why don't we skip over the coaching slides? We'll send them out, and we can touch on them at the next HOD meeting. I want to be respectful that we can wrap up by 9 o'clock here. So, so these will all be in your slide deck, folks. And again, we'll talk to them within the sport meetings as well as the next HOD meeting.
Yep. And again, the only thing I'll stress on the family hospitality is we've had a lot of people come in there with athletes and partners because there are refreshments free of charge. But what that does is that takes away from the actual family members that are there to support everyone. So if you could please help us police that area, if you will, to keep that strictly to family members that are there as spectators. There's the lift tickets and the meals we've talked about. And again, just to stress to keep everyone there at Whitetail on Sunday for the dinner and then opening ceremony. For any spectators and families that do want to walk out towards the finish line for Alpine and maybe go get a couple snapshots on the course, and they're not going to be on skis, they must sign a walking pass waiver, and those will be available in the upper lodge at the family hospitality area.
As a note, that will also be necessary if you're at the training day on the 9th of February. We'll have them at the check-in point there.
Yeah.
Well.
And there's no charge for that. Just need to sign it. Talked about this, but again, for snowshoeing, especially on the time trial, there's not a lot of space. So we just want you to help relay the information to families to abide by space that's allocated for them to view that. Similarly, down for the finals as well. They can bring their own folding chairs for comfort on either day, and there's no walking passes required for snowshoeing. As we always stress with every event, especially for winter games, is layer, layer, layer. You can always remove layers. You can't always add layers on unless you have a bunch. However, as you know, the weather can be very temperamental, no pun intended. So prepare for cold, wind, rain, anything that you can think of, as you can know, or as you see now with the weather we've had this week. And then next week it's going to warm up a little bit, and then you never know what's coming around the corner. Special events, we've talked about the opening ceremony. The theme of the dance is the Monster Mash. So, you can dress appropriately for that. We will have Petey and Charlie, who have been our DJs in the past. That will be at the Ramada Inn on Monday night, and we will have an athlete working with Petey and Charlie as the DJs. Again, the Homewood Suites family reception will be right across the parking lot at the Homewood Suites. Award ceremonies will take place, one at Alpine, one at Snowshoeing. We talked about the Athlete Leadership Workshop. The other thing we want to hit on is this will be the qualifying year for the 2021 World Winter Games. They will take place in Sweden. And at this time, I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions. We don't have any information at this point in regards to the timelines for quota requests, when the allocations will be allotted, and when that communication will head out to the state programs, and then for the selection process will occur. But again, just want everyone to know that this is a qualifying year for those games, and this will be for alpine and snowshoeing sports only for the Winter Games. Words and information. Again, we'll have the posting of the results at the different locations for the different venues, and just have someone dedicated after the awards are presented to the athletes and partners, that someone's there to meet those athletes and partners and go back to the delegation area, wherever that may be. Food services, I think we hit everything there. The only thing we do ask is that after you have your lunches, dinner, whatever, please be respectful and have everyone be respectful of Whitetail so that we can get people in and out and also clean up after ourselves, as we usually do, but also it doesn't hurt to stress that. Family members will not be able to purchase, we haven't done this for I don't know how many years, but we always get the question, will family members be able to buy breakfast tickets, dinner tickets, that kind of thing? Families are not able to come to the delegation dinner at the Ramada Plaza on Monday evening due to space requirement or space constraints. So they can go to the restaurant there, the local dining areas. They can also partake in the food services at Whitetail for lunches and dinners. Depending on where they're staying, breakfast potentially at their hotels. Every delegation member will have a lunch ticket or a meal ticket for the other meals. Medical will primarily use Whitetail Ski Patrol for all medical issues while on their site at the resort. There is also a walk-in clinic kind of downstairs from where the control center is, that they can attend to any injuries or concerns as well. We'll have medical personnel from Special Olympics Maryland primarily located over at Snowshoeing, so we'll work with you on that. Just an indication of the upcoming webinars. Make note for the second HOD webinars on the 13th of February at 8 p.m. There's the link to register for that. And then your coaches should also be aware of the upcoming pre-games, pre-competition, alpine and snowshoeing webinars. Miscellaneous, we talked about the coaches resource page. There's the link for that. The evaluation survey, we always request as much feedback as possible from coaches, volunteers, families, HODs, chaperones, volunteers, whatever. The one thing that we will be able to do is if coaches speak with their athletes, we want their feedback as well. I mean, they're our main clientele, if you will. Coaches will be able to collect feedback from their athletes and then enter multiple responses, if you will, on the evaluation survey. So the more we have, the better we can be prepared moving forward. The good things you like, things you think we can improve upon, or any other ideas you may have. We always say thank the volunteers. They're giving up their time to come support us, the athletes, in our event. So make sure you thank them. You all well know how much volunteers mean. Without them, Special Olympics doesn't exist. And also thank Whitetail staff. They work tirelessly to put on this great event for us and for the athletes and partners, etc. So they really appreciate being thanked as well.
And with that in mind, we recognize that you are all volunteers as well, and we truly thank you. And you can thank each other too. So, but don't want to bypass that. But thank you.
Again, this is just for your references. Kendall Zeswitz is our Alpine sports director, and also lists the other sports she oversees throughout the year. Zach Centron, who has just joined us recently, he's overseeing snowshoeing along with Ron Freeman, Trish Miles, and some others, and his other sports. If you have any general questions related to Winter Games that aren't sports specific, there's my email, my information. Feel free to contact me as well.
I think we're at the top of the hour. That's the content that Steve wanted to go over. I know we do have 2 hands raised, but for those of you who do need to bow out, thank you. We'll go ahead and get the questions. But Steve, any closing remarks for anybody who needs to depart for the evening?
No, I think Mike hit it square on the head. Is without you guys, your programs don't exist, and we don't have anyone to serve here at the state office. So, again, thank you for all of your efforts leading up to the Winter Games. And I think almost everybody on the list I'm looking at, not only for the Winter Games, but throughout the year. You guys are the leaders of the movement. We truly appreciate all of your efforts in getting the athletes, partners, and coaches trained up so that we can showcase their skills throughout the state.
Okay. So thank you again. If anyone who needs to drop off, that's great, and we'll take a few questions. I've got 2 hands raised. Al, you had yours up first.
Yeah.
So
yes, I just wanted to double check on the Alpine spectators walking passes. You said something about that they would be available for something else, and I didn't know if that was for the time trials on Sunday or if that was for Saturday, February 9th on the race and gate training.
All of the above. They'll be available for at the time trial or at the on snow training. We will have those available at the control center, which is in the upper level, and we'll also have those available for time trials as well as competition days.
Yeah,
okay.
Just to clarify, they're required if anybody's walking around. And that on the 9th of February, as well as the Sunday of Winter Games, just keep in mind the resort is open to the public, and so there'll be a lot more traffic on the slopes, and it's a bit riskier for people walking around at that time. But we will have them available.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Barb, your line's open.
Okay. Hi. Most of my questions have been answered, but for our underage unified partners, do they count as athletes as far as the 3-to-1 ratio?
No, because partners can sometimes be younger and need supervision, or sometimes be older and actually be additional supervisors. We pull them out of the mix for the ratio just to try to keep things simple. So they're not factored in either way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Those are the only ones who had their hands raised. If anybody else has a question, if not, we'll call it a night.
Again, I know we ran a little over, so I appreciate everyone. I think there's some good information. Take a look and make sure you had the event guide. If you did not receive it, email me, and I'll make sure that you get that.
Okay. Thanks again, everyone. Look forward to seeing many of you out on the snow on the 9th and at an event before or after that. Have a great rest of your evening.